G'day, Keithy here. Thank you for joining for part 2 of the Thermofan video. Okay, so this time we're going to install the head unit into the dash. It means I've got to cut a hole and I'm not looking forward to that at all. And then I'm going to do a little bit more wiring, go over that with you. I'll also go over the fan, what the fan's all about, and a trial fitment of the fan. How I'll go about sizing it up to fit it into the engine bay and remove the old fan.
Okay guys, so this has got to be like the most scary thing I've ever done. I'm going to drill a hole into my dash. So I've got the pilot drill bit there, and then I've got the hole saw here to drill through up there to put the little gauge. Let's see how we go. I'm very scared right now. So I'll drill a pilot hole first. If this goes bad, then we're in big trouble. Move that little wire out of the way for now. Alright, here we go. Wish me luck. I don't want to do this. Okay, so that's one hole. Oh, that took a lot for me to do that just then. Take the drill bit out and we'll put in the hole saw and regret life's decisions. Alright, here goes nothing. Alright. There's a big hole in my dash. I don't know if I like it. I'll clean all that stuff up with a vacuum and we'll see how this goes. So I'll give it a test fit. I might have to drill the hole out a bit more yet. Oh, that's tight, but it fits. How good's that? So that's going to push all the way in. It's a little bit tight, which is what I want, but it fits. And that sits perfectly there. There's plenty of room behind it. You obviously can't see that. So that's where that's going to sit. Oh, thank Christ, it went through. Wow. Alrighty, so this is a BF Falcon Thermofan that I'm using for the install in the Range Rover. So it's a second-hand fan, obviously. It already comes with a plug, but what I'll probably end up doing is changing that for an Anderson plug for my application. I honestly think that it's a little bit easier to get the Anderson plug on and off instead of that one there. This fan is very interesting in that it has a thermistor as well. Now, I'm not 100% sure how thermistors work there, but that's it there, that little green looking thing. To my understanding, what that's supposed to do is basically if the temperature in the vicinity of that little thermistor there is coming up, getting high, then that'll start to slowly turn the fan on and just keep air flowing basically through the radiator. In this case, I'm not going to run that, so I won't be using that particular part, but this is just to give you a bit of an idea of the fan. What I'm going to show you next, so I'm going to remove the shrouding here. I've already taken the T-piece out of here, as you can see. So I'm going to move the shrouding and I'm going to remove the fan as well. And basically size that Thermofan up. So you can see I've got the Range Rover on the C-Tech charging up at the moment. It hasn't done anything for a few weeks, the poor old girl. Yeah, so that's basically what I'm going to do, okay? So we'll take the shrouding off, and basically do a bit of a mock-up, do a fit-up for that fan, and we'll be laughing. I'll get back to you with the removal of the fan. There's something that maybe you guys haven't done before. I'll show you how I do it. Okay guys, so in order to get the fan off, we first need to take this top cover off, and that's pretty simple. You can see I've already undone the clip here and the other clip over here, and this just simply comes out, sometimes not quite easily. Very easy, just 2 clips, out she comes. I'll put that up on my bench. Okay, so next step is we want to take the fan out, and that's not just as simple as turning it, twisting it, whatever. What I use is a screwdriver and a 36mm spanner. Now keep in mind this is a Thor motor. I'm not entirely sure if the GEMS motors run a 36mm for the fan to fit onto the water pump, but that's all I use for it. So what I do is I get my 36mm down here and seat it on the bolt. When you seat it on there, you'll know you've got it on. There we go, so that's on there now. And then I use this screwdriver to go through, there's 3 water pump bolts that hold the pulley onto the water pump. So I go through the closest bolt and use the tip of the screwdriver to go onto the center of the pulley at the same time. So I'll do that now, and I'll show you how easy it is to get these fans off. All right, so I've got the bolt there, and I've got the screwdriver underneath the bolt and sitting on the center part of the pulley. All you gotta do is hold your screwdriver like that and give this a really good shove. It's a bit tight. Sometimes you might need to give it a bit of a bash. There you go, look at that, just like that, done. We'll get the tools out of here. And then it's simply just a matter of spinning the fan. You'll see that the nut spins as well with the fan. If not, you may need to just lift the fan a little bit, take a bit of weight off the fan so that you can just spin him off. Spinning quite nicely here. Now obviously you're not going to be able to get the fan out with that T-piece in there, so you'll need to remove that. It's coming off very easily there now. And that's all it should take. And when putting it on, you don't even need to belt it because the rotation of the motor will keep the fan attached. All right, we're almost off. There we go, that's got him. And it's just simply a matter of lifting him out. Very easy. Nothing hard about that. And so the next step in order to be able to trial fit this Thermofan, I'm going to need to take the remainder of the shroud out. So that's pretty simple because it's just located in the bottom by 2 little tabs, and then up the top here by these 2 little clips here. I'll show you how I get them out. So I just get the edge of the screwdriver under and lift him up from both sides, just a little bit until I can get the screwdriver in there and go to town on it. And up they come. We'll do both of them. Here he comes. Very easy to do that. Took about 3 seconds. Okay, so next step now is to pull this out. Now you've got to remember you've got a power steering reservoir there, you've got your windscreen wiper fluid there, you've got some hoses here that you just push them out of the way. And sometimes your thermostat might be located at the bottom of this. There's a little tab for the thermostat to sit in. Just double check that before you start pulling it out. Now I've already taken that out because I've drained the coolant out of the radiator. So I'm going to just gently work this out. It's not always going to be an easy job to get these out because you do have pipes and things on the sides, but we'll have a go and you can see it live. Just got to lift him up a little bit. Get it out of this little thing. There's one side, there's the other side. And just nice and gently wiggle. You don't want to break it. Nice and gently. If there's something in the way, you might have to have a look. What can I see here? I think it might be catching on a pipe. Yeah, it is. I think there's an oil cooler line down there that it's just catching on. There we go. Nice and easy there, guys. You don't want to break anything. Out she comes. All right, so you're left with a pretty decent little space in here, and I've got a lot of access in here now. I can see the twigs and stuff in here from going four-wheel driving. So I'll probably clean them up. Actually, to be honest, I might even take the whole radiator out, seeing as it is disconnected, and give it a flush while I've got it all apart. Pull some stuff out of it, because you see I've got things like this poking through the radiator, and it's been a long time since I've had this out. So I'll give him a clean up. It's always good to take that opportunity. And then you can also see your air conditioning condenser and your transmission cooler down here, which will be in front of the radiator. So once you remove your radiator, and this is quite an easy job, there's only a couple of bolts on the side that hold that in, and they're down low from memory. And then it just slides out. So it sort of locates in the side of this bracket here. If you want to take that out, I'll do a bit of a video later on with that. And then I can start trial fitting this thermofan. So I'll try and sneak it down in there and see if there's anything in the way. I'm going to have to do a cutout up the top here on the fan and down the bottom as well, so that the coolant hoses can go in without obstruction, basically. And I may have to trim the sides looking at the chassis rails down there, but I don't think it's going to be too big a job. And that fan is quite narrow, so it's going to leave a good little bit of space in there between the pulley and the radiator. Awesome. Okay, so this is what you'll be left with once you've got your shroud out. You can see all the way through. You can see the oil cooler lines, the thermostat there, and the hose that comes out of the bottom of the radiator. The two chassis rails, so we've got one there and one over here. They're going to be a little bit interesting for putting this fan in, but it shouldn't be too bad. And I think the good thing is that the radiator is actually, the support panel has got quite a lot of meat, so I can put some bolts through that in order to mount it. So that's really good. I'm happy with that. It looks like it's going to be a reasonably easy job. Okay, so for a bit of a comparison here, guys, you can see that I've got my belt-driven fan laying over the top of this Ford Falcon fan here at the moment. And there's not really anything in it. They're pretty much the same size. So that's really good news for me. And I know that that fan works too, because that's the same fan that I'm using in the big rig, the Ute. So I know it works. I know it can cool that down. That's an iron block 5 litre. And obviously with the P38, I've only got a aluminium block 4.6. I know it's pushing more weight, obviously, with the P38 weighing a lot more. But I think worst case scenario, even at idle, it's definitely not going to have a problem. So we're going to do a series of tests in order to make sure that fan's up to the task before I make it a permanent fixture in the car. But I've got a feeling it's going to do the job nicely. Okay, so when fitting up the thermofan, I need to know basically how I'm going to get it in. So trusty old tape measure is going to come in handy for that. I also got to look down here and see if there's any obstructions. Now, I had a quick look before, and to me, I've got the chassis rails in there, which are pretty much the tightest point. This, unfortunately, the clip has broken on that, on my washer bottle reservoir, but that's okay because it actually allows me to move it, which is nice and good. But that's not protruding past the chassis rails, really. It's not going to be in the way of the fan, I don't think. Other than that, once you get up a little bit, the chassis rails are clear. So I'm not going to need to trim the sides of the fan too much, maybe at the bottom for 150 mils. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure between the supports. So that's the width of the radiator essentially. And I can see at the chassis rail, I've got about 10 mil either side of that for the bracket that the radiator stays attached to. So we'll measure him up. Right there, we've got 60 centimeters, 600 millimeters, or if you want, it's just shy of 2 feet. It's about 23.5 inches, slightly bigger than that if you're Imperial. So I know that is how wide, at a minimum, I'm going to need to be. So what I'll probably do, and just looking at this bracket here, and it's the same on this side, so I can probably put a bolt or a screw of some sort through that to mount the fan at the top, and I can do that on both sides. There's plenty of room and plenty of meat in that frame for me to be able to do that, which is really, really good. Down the bottom, I can see that there's the mounts where the original shroud went. I could probably use them as well to rest it on at the bottom. So there's plenty of room in there for that. And one thing I need to keep in mind is that the radiator sits back about 10 millimeters from the support that it sits in. So when I trim up the Thermofan in order to get it to fit, I don't want to trim it to the point where the fan itself sticks in too far, because the fan could rub onto the radiator fins and that would destroy the radiator, and that would not be pleasant. Alright, so I've got a basic idea. I know how wide it is, it's 600 millimeters, and how deep it is 500 millimeters. Funny enough, that is the core that needs to get air through it. So 500 by 600, that's pretty basic. So what we'll go now and do is measure up the Thermofan itself and see where we might need to trim in order to get that to fit. I think it's going to look quite good. It's going to fit almost factory flush. So it's not going to look very bastardized. It's going to look like it was meant to be in here. And fingers crossed, if it looks good, it should go good too. We'll see how we go. Okay, so with this BF Thermofan we've got here, I know that minimum to fit was 600, and I've got about 10 mil either side, so let's say 620. That would probably be very close to 2 feet in the old money, or about 24 inches. So let's have a look here and see how wide this is. Alright, so this is about 670 millimeters. So I need to take about 2 inches off that. And that's just off this frame part here. So I can see straight away that I'm going to need to take a bit off here. So that includes these brackets here, which I don't need because this is from a Ford Falcon and not from a Range Rover. So I'll do that. I'll take a little bit off here and a little bit off that side, and that will cover our side fitting. No worries. It's got a lovely little bit of flat at the bottom, so that'll rest nicely down the bottom. Let's see how tall it is now. I think we said it was 500 millimeters to the top of the radiator. Okay, so this is a bit smaller than that. This is at 460. So I'm probably going to have a little bit of a gap. What have we got up here? So if I go from there, it's about 475 from bottom to top. So a little bit of the radiator core is likely to be exposed, most likely at the bottom. I'll just have to check that it's all flush along here. I may have to flatten this out. We'll see how we go there. But you can see that there's plenty of spots. So this is looking at the face of the fan, which will be up against the radiator. There's plenty of room there for me to put some bolts and stuff, or nuts or screws or whatever through here to attach it to that radiator support. So that's pretty good. So the first thing that I'm likely to do is I'm going to cut a bit off each side. I'll just make sure that it's not going to be a problem on the other side of this fan if I do that. Okay, so you can see here right now, this clip, which I'm probably not going to use, it may be an issue, because I'm pretty sure they're a bit of a pain in the ass to get off these clips. Oh no, look at that, that was very easy. Alright, well I may well use that, we'll see how we go. It's got a couple of feeds in here. I can do some research on this particular fan and use that thermistor if I so desire. So I'll do a little bit of research on that before I go cutting it, but at least I got this fitting off here, and that looks like it's a waterproof fitting too, so that might well be a good thing to use. I suggest that I probably can cut the 10 mil off here that I want to, and 10 mil off the other side, and then give it a little bit of a trial fit and see how it goes. Alrighty guys, I don't know if you can see it, but I clearly can. There's my line, so it's about 200 in on each side and 160 up for now. The reason I've done that is so that if I need to, I can always make it the cut a little bit wider or taller later on. It's better to cut less than you need to for the time being. So I can see that this bracket here is going to need to come out, and just this little section here, that's not too much, so really quite good. And it doesn't get in the way of this thermistor on the back, which is really good. It's only going to come up to about there. So that's really good. Let's get into it. So that's nice and neat. Good little cut. And I've made the cut, that's the top there, so I've made the cut at the bottom. So really I haven't had to take much out yet to get this thing in. And I know that I'm not going to need to cut out at all for the hose at the bottom that comes out of the radiator. And I probably won't need to cut at the top for the top hose, hopefully. So let's go and have a look and see how it fits. Alrighty guys, here's the freshly cut fan. I'm just taking the little clip off for now. Let's have a go and see if it actually fits and see if there's anything else that I need to cut out. Okay, so it's a little bit awkward getting it in just initially. Okay, that's quite wide. I've compared this to the original shroud that was on with the standard fan, and this is actually wider by a good margin. So I can see there that it's already too big to get past these things up here easily anyway. That's just the extra coolant dripping out of the radiator, guys. I'm not having a bowel movement because I'm leaning on the front of the car. Okay. So I mean, I know that that's going to fit down the bottom thus far, but you can see here I've got an obstruction. Wow, there's a lot coming out of there now. Where you come out? Where you come from? Where you come from? Okay. I can see that, yeah. So I'm going to need to keep this much the same width the whole way up. So it's having a bit of drama getting past this reservoir here and also past the power steering pump. So what I'll do, I won't take it all off. So I've only taken 20 mil off that anyway. I might just do another double check real quick and have a look from the side that you're looking at and see if I can see any more obvious things sticking out. I may well need to just take more off this at the bottom rather than at the top. Okay, so that's okay there. It's when we get down to the power steering pump there, I can get it down further. That's not too bad. How cool. It loves dripping down, doesn't it? Loves it. Love it. Okay, so what can you see that I can't see there? Okay, so we've got this here that's just touching on the battery box cover. And I can also see over the power steering pump there, we've got a little bit of a connection going on. So I'm probably going to need to take this little bracket out of here. Just looking down now, it's not too bad, the rest of it. Okay, so I'd assume that if I just make a nice neat cut along the edge and take this out, that'll alleviate that side. And I can see, okay, yeah, so this side here, it's a very similar story. I'm just going to need to take this edge off here where that bracket is. That's what's touching the reservoir at the moment due to its sheer size. So I'll do that. I know I'm not going to need that or that. It's too big to fit anyway. And just looking at it as it sits in position here, once the radiator gets to, with the top section here level with the top of the radiator, I'm going to need to notch where the power steering bracket is on this side so that I can screw this to the actual panel. So I think it's likely that I'm going to make a small cut here down there, so that'll slide under. It doesn't need to be very big. And on that side, there are no obstructions like the power steering pump bracket or anything on the actual brace itself. It's just the bracket that used to hold this coolant reservoir, the windscreen washer reservoir in place. Okay, so I'll take that little edge off there. I don't need that. I know that's going to be an issue getting it in, and I don't think I'm going to use it for fitment anyway. That's okay. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to measure up the reservoir here from the top to just as far as I need for clearance, and notch that out. It won't take much to do that. It's only, just looking at it now, it's only about 3 or probably maybe 4 inches at the most. So yeah, we'll go 3 inches to start off with. That I'll notch out of that, and then we'll trial fit it again and have another go. Alrighty guys, so I've just nipped a little bit of that bracket on the edge on both sides, and I just had to scallop this tiny little bit here, about 10 mil, just so that it fits next to the power steering pump. And as you can see here, it's in. Now it's a little bit wide, so I'm going to need to pull it out and do some more trimming. I can see here that it's interfering with the washer bottle, so I'll need to trim that. I'm going to need to trim probably 40 mils off the top here, and maybe down, maybe 2 or 3 inches down, in order to clear the old washer bottle, and that'll make it easier for this bypass radiator hose here as well. And what I've also noticed is with this top lip here, I'm going to need to take it back to about level with this edge here in order for it to fit, because it's actually keeping the radiator a good inch away from the support bracket. So I'll need to take that back in order to be able to bolt it in and get it a little bit closer to the radiator. And that's just up the top that I'll need to do that in order to make that happen. I'd say in the Falcon that this come out of, this would have slipped over the top of the radiator a little bit perhaps. But that's no biggie. It's only a couple of little cuts here across the top. That's quite easy. That'll get it in nice and close. And then I'll just take a little bit out of the scallop, a little bit out here, and see how that goes from there. Stay tuned. Okay guys, so what you're seeing there is the final product. I just need to actually bolt it down, but otherwise that's what it's going to look like. I did have to trim around the edges near the washer bottle there and near the power steering reservoir. They were both in need of a little bit of a trim. It was very tight. I also took about, probably I'd say 10 mil straight across the top. Yeah, just to bring the fan in closer, because at the sides there was a good 10 or 15 mil gap from the sides to make it hard to bolt down to the thing, and there's plenty of clearance between the fan and the radiator. So it looks quite good. I think that's a job well done. Alrighty, so there we have it. I've got the hole drilled and the little unit installed up the front. We've done all the wiring in the car itself, and we've done a fit up of the fan in front of the radiator. Just a bit of a mock-up fit to see how it all goes. What you'll see in the next part is I'm going to give you a bit of an overview on the fan, how it all works, and we're going to install the fan and see how it goes. So stay tuned for that one guys. See you next time. Thank you for watching.